Today, I'm talking to Brad Webb of Douglas Elliman in New York City. With 19 years in the business and a real estate agent who ranks in the top 0.0001% of real estate brokers nationally, he has received many awards, including the prestigious Chairman's Circle Gold Award. Often cited in the New York Times and Curb.com, Brad is best known for and attributes his success to consistently breaking what he calls the constraints of conventional selling. Today, we talk about how to discover and apply your unique value add. Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf Podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. This podcast was created for real estate agents across the country to come together, sharing ideas to take your, their, and our business to the next level. All right, everybody, it's the Jere Metcalf Podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. And today we have on the show Brad Webb with Douglas Elliman out of New York City. There he goes. We can't hear anybody else when you do that, Brad.
They're cheering.
Awesome to have you on the show today, everybody. I'm excited to share with you, or I'm excited for Brad to share with us everything he does. But first, tell us a little about yourself and a little about how you got into business.
How I got into business? I am from Atlanta, Georgia, hot Atlanta. I moved up here.
Okay.
Yay, 25 years ago. I think this month, 25 years ago.
Wow.
Was an actor, then got into real estate 19 years ago. And I kind of fell in love with real estate. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
So now that you're in real estate, you started as an actor. I think you told us a little bit about, I loved what you shared earlier. I should have made you wait, but you're in acting. I think we talked to a few agents in New York City who came in as actors and then actually hit it big as a real estate agent. That was a tough transition because you went from this is what I'm going to do, and somehow you figured out real estate really was it for you. What was it? How did you do that?
Well, real estate was for me. I was sort of forced into the business. I had a friend, Holly Parker, was a big agent then, and now she's, one of the top in the country. And she just kept saying, you got to do this. You're perfect for it. Your personality's perfect for it. You got the eye, you got to do it. And I did not want to be the sellout actor. So all my actor buddies would, give me crap. So after 3 years of her berating me, I finally I put my little toe in the business. And I sort of did acting along with real estate, but slowly real estate just took over and I loved it. And it was just me.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about now. I know you are on a team with Holly Parker. You guys are consistently one of the top teams in the city. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing, your success, your volume, any of that good stuff you want to share.
Yeah, we've had a good run. The last 4 years, we've been number 1 or number 2 at Douglas Elliman, and Douglas Elliman's the most successful company in Manhattan. So, we've had a good run. We sell all kinds of stuff. I tend to do more resale than new development. Holly does a lot of new development. Holly does a lot of stuff. But I for some reason, I've been more of a resale guy. I'm not necessarily neighborhood specific, although I live on the Upper West Side and do a lot of Upper West Side business. I always say I'm client specific. I'd be bored if I sold in one neighborhood and never left. So I specialize in the client. Whatever you need me to do, I'll do.
Well, and that leads me to a little bit about, so in your success being, a top agent on a top team in one of the most competitive cities in the country, if not the world, you kind of probably have a secret sauce of what does make you successful. What is kind of your secret superpower?
Well, if I told you, it wouldn't be a secret. No, the one thing I think that I'm good at is...
That's what we're trying to do, is not make it a secret anymore.
All right. Okay.
No, I'm kidding. What are you good at?
I'm good at juggling. I am good at, I'm good at being me, which sounds stupid, but I have sort of a quirky personality, and I bring that into my business. For instance, I was telling you a story before, but 6 months ago, I had a listing that would not sell. I had it for 5.5 months on the market, and I wasn't getting any calls, and it was a great listing. So I decided to do something a little different. I called the owner, who knows me, and I said, Alan, this is going to sound crazy, but I'm going to do something to get attention for your listing. And I told him what it was. And he said, Brad, you are crazy, but if you want to do it, do it. So I did it. I went out on my terrace and I took a really crazy photograph of me making the most ridiculous face, wrinkling my face up and crossing my eyes. And I put it as the lead photo for the listing. I got over 100 phone calls in 2 days of brokers who I'd never met before saying, oh my God, somebody hacked your account. You got to go online and see what they did on your Pacific Street listing. And I said, oh my God, thank you so much for telling me. That's great. But by the way, have you looked at the listing? Because it's amazing. It's got 14-foot ceilings. It's got huge windows. And one of those many calls, the guy said, let me bring my buyer. They bought the buyer and had a signed contract in 2 weeks. Actually, I got a phone call from the president of Douglas Elliman saying the same thing. Oh my God, you're never going to believe what happened. Somebody hacked your account. And I let him finish. And I told him, Stephen, I did it on purpose. What are you doing? Like, what are you thinking? And I told him my rationale. And he's like, that's brilliant. It's ridiculous, but it's brilliant. And don't ever do it again.
Yeah. Don't ever do it again. Exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can just do it once.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you come to, I think, there's a few angles. First of all, everybody wants, in our business, it's competitive. Everybody's trying to do something different, but we kind of just all do the same thing over and over anyway and copy one another. How do you not do that? Because who would have thought, most people would, first of all, worry about what other people thought if they would have even thought of it in the first place.
Right. Well, a blessing and a curse. I don't really care what anybody thinks. I do things that I think are right. And in my personality, if you tell me to do something, I'm probably not going to do it. I just do things different. It's just the way I am, good or bad. If everybody's doing something, I started an ad campaign many years ago because people were putting out postcards and it was always a picture of a property and they would have a description on the back. And I went to my best friend who did like the Super Bowl commercials and he did graphic design for movies. And I said, Jamie, I want you to make a front of a postcard for me that is a cross between an Apple ad. You know how they had like a silhouette? I want a silhouette and something along those lines, and Bloomingdale's, because I picked Bloomingdale's because I wanted luxury, but I wanted something modern like Apple. And he did a silhouette of me holding a briefcase and kind of like just an interesting pose. And the objective was, I said, I'll make it interesting and super simple because all I want them to do is flip the card over. And then I'll have 3 lines on the back that are very short, and it'll be completely different than everybody else that's sending. It's got a property on the front, and then it's got, sometimes what people would send were 3 pages. And when I got them in the mail, I saw the property and I threw it away. So I just wanted them to see a picture that was interesting so that they would flip it over. And then I'd have 3 things on the back that were catchy and would just kind of stand out. And I got a call a couple years ago. I probably did that 15 years ago. I got a call maybe 2 years ago from someone who said, I've saved your postcard from X amount of years ago. I want you to come talk to me about selling my place. So I mailed it to them 15 years or 13 years, whatever it was, ago, and they kept it. And they called me 13 years later to sell their place. So I've always done things that are different.
Well, it's important to stand out and put a memory print on people. So the postcard, and I noticed you said 3s, everything are 3s, like always good in 3s. And you mentioned earlier taglines, like you've got taglines and you're doing things in 3s. On that postcard, for example, in another comment, not to answer all the questions ahead, but you talked about whatever everybody's doing, you take it and flip it. And that's a great example. Here's what everybody's doing. So you took what they were doing and you flipped it with something people would turn over and read and remember.
100%.
Tell us about, there was one about I think it was with the Girl Scout cookie
Oh,
thing. Tell us about that one.
yeah. So in my early days, I still do this, but in my early days, I figured there's sort of a preface to this story. When I was an actor, I would take these classes, and every class told you the same thing. Mail your headshot to every agent in town, and it should have 3 paragraphs. The first one is what you've done in the past. The second one is 3 actors that people say you remind them of. And the third paragraph was what kind of work you want. So I did this, and I think I did 3 cycles of it. And I sat back and I realized this is so stupid. If every class and every acting book in New York is telling everybody to write 3 paragraphs, the same 3 paragraphs, agents are going to be bored out of their minds. So I decided I'm going to do something different. So I wrote a 1-sentence letter, and my middle name is Doody, Doody, which
There's
my
a whole
letter,
nother story.
there's a whole nother story. Thanks, Mom and Dad. My entire letter was, my middle name is Doody, comma, imagine what it was like going through high school with that middle name. Every single agent in town called me. I go to their office to meet them, and everyone's like, that was the best letter I've ever gotten. They were just laughing.
And it was 1 sentence.
1 sentence. My name is
You
Doody.
got calls.
I got everybody called. So in real estate, I was reading all these stupid descriptions. Everything's charming. Everything's got this, got that. And everyone writes everything the same way. So I'm like, all right, I'll write, it's hard to make it uber creative, but a tagline is all you need to get them to engage. So I wrote, instead of doing triple mint, I started mintier than a Girl Scout cookie. Instead of soul, I wrote more soul than James Brown. And the New York Times picked up on it, and they loved it. And they were they loved it, but they were also like, is this a good idea or is this a bad idea? So I've always been one to just, whatever everybody else is doing, it's inherent in my nature to do the exact opposite.
Well, and the thing is, it reminds me of Seth Godin. He talks about marketing as advertising or marketing is a competition for attention. And when everybody's doing the same thing, you don't hear it. But it's when you've got the one thing that stands out, that's what you see. I think, but the next step is, how is it you can be seen, but it's got to be relevant. Back to, how do you spend, you're figuring out ways to be seen, like on the listing, it was getting the picture that was funny. Okay, great, you got attention, but now you've got to captivate or direct that attention to the result that you want.
Yeah, well, if you're promoting a specific property, you've got to make it stand out. So maybe in staging, if they've got a signature painting, something that's just really unique, maybe that's your lead photo, just because it's going to stand out. It's going to look different. And then you just got to get them in the door.
Exactly.
Or if you're marketing yourself, you just got to get yourself in the door. Like, it's a pitch. You know what you're talking about in real estate. I know what I'm talking about in real estate. Getting a real estate job is, okay, 20% of the people who are brokers know what they're doing. 80% are just kind of hanging on. And it's transactional. The 20 that know what they're doing, you're competing against them. And a lot of it is, do the people trust you? Do you know what you're doing? Like, people are smart now. Everyone here uses Street Easy. You guys probably use Trulia or Zillow or whatever is popular.
We use FMLS. I don't have them in MLS.
Okay.
Or our clients use Zillow, or really Zillow. Yeah. I think Zillow and Trulia are the same now, but they use Zillow.
People in New York use Street Easy, and every buyer, actually every New Yorker, looks at Street Easy all the time. People are obsessed with real estate in New York, so they know about listings. You just have to add another dynamic to the fold of what's your add value. So you got to get in the door, and if you're trustworthy and you know what you're doing, you'll do well in this business.
Yeah, and know what to do with the attention that you happen to be getting, which you clearly do. So you've been in the business for 16 years?
19.
19, that's right, 19. In your 19 years, when you started getting into this business, what was your what's been your biggest aha about being a real estate agent?
My biggest aha about being a real estate. agent? That's a good question. I think you know, getting into real estate, you don't realize that the vast majority of what you do is being a part-time psychologist. You're managing people's emotions. At least in New York, when somebody spends $10 million on an apartment, they walk into that apartment 2 times for 10 minutes each. Then they drop down $10 million. If you go out and you buy a shirt, you're probably going to look online to see if you can get a better deal. You're going to go try that shirt on 4 times. You're going to invite your friend into the store, and you're going to obsess over a $100 shirt. In real estate, people drop crazy amounts of money, and it's very quick. So managing people's emotions is definitely what a real estate broker does. And I didn't realize that coming in.
How did you figure out how to do that? Which been your biggest, because I think that's been a big one for me. And I feel like I've finally figured it out. Well, you never completely figure stuff out. You're always learning. But what has been your biggest kind of like, okay, this is what I'm doing and this is how to best manage it? Because when you're managing other people's emotions, you're also managing your own. I mean, that might be one of the biggest challenges for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to get wrapped into the emotion of the business, and you know, dealing with other people's emotions can be maddening. I don't know if I've totally figured it out yet, because everybody's different and every case is different. So I'm not sure if I've really mastered anything. One thing that I've done because of the emotional issues is I only work with people that I know or are connected to people I know. So it's been years since I've, you know, picked somebody up in an open house as a client. I don't do that. If I'm doing an open house to sell an apartment, I am a representative of the seller, and I take that pretty seriously. I'm not there to, you know, most brokers do open houses just to get buyers. I don't do that. I also, you know, I do it because my fiduciary responsibility to the seller, but I also do it because I kind of hated working with strangers. If I work with someone I know or a connected person, I can find out if they're a little nutty, and if I want to deal with them. I definitely turn down more business than I do, because I have a life, and I like to be happy.
Yeah.
And if you're working with people who just drive you crazy, it's just not worth it.
Well, and it makes me think of something you said earlier. You said as an agent, to be a great agent, you've got to be trustworthy and have trust and knowledge. And when you don't know people, to advise someone who doesn't trust you is kind of impossible, which makes it difficult to do your job.
Yeah, 100%.
So when you can establish that trust, then you can actually do your job and be good at it. So how did you get to,
you know, on your point, I want people, when I say something, I want them to listen to it. And the first thing I tell anybody is 99% of what I'm going to do is talking you out of doing dumb shit. I tell everybody that. And because I'm connected to these people, they know that I'm not feeding them a line. But countless times I've told people, I tell them all the time, do not buy this place. You're going to lose your shirt. You know, there's underlying financial issues with the building, whatever it is. I tell people all the time, oh my God, I love this. You know what? This is an IKEA kitchen. You're not really noticing that it's crap. Like, you can't spend $6 million on this. I tell people all the time what not to do. It's very rare that I say you should buy this apartment. But when I do say you should buy this apartment, because I am brutally honest about everything, people listen and they do buy the apartment. So that's the benefit of the connection and the trust. Like, because I just work with people I'm connected to, they do listen usually.
Wow. How do you get to a place where, you know, you've been in this for 19 years. So there was a period of time in this business where you were not necessarily working with everybody you knew. What's the best way to get to that place where you are working with people you know? Is it being a part of a team? Is it just establishing yourself? Is it you just got to do the hard work first? Or what would your answer be to that?
I think it's knowledge based. I mean, you got to go out and see everything. You know, in New York, for instance, we don't list square footage. And if you do, this is for the co-op market. It's a fictitious number. So you can call something 2,000 square feet and it could actually be 1,600 square feet. So is it? Yeah. So so the more properties you see, you start realizing how people exaggerate, whether it's square footage or you got to learn how I'm great. Like people send me all the time. They're like, should I rent this place on Airbnb? Like friends do it all the time because I can look at a picture and it's almost like I can walk through the apartment or house. I can see exactly what it is. I say, no, this is a trick that photographers do to make it look bigger. They're doing this or that. You got to, by seeing tons of properties and comparing it to listings, it's an add value. People are going to ask you, what about this place? It looks amazing. Oh, it's just a good photograph. You should see the bathrooms. They're a dump. Or, it's a wide angle lens. Anytime you see a listing that has like, where the camera is set up away from the windows, because you've been in a million places, that the view is of a brick wall. Like, why else would they not show the view? So it's all knowledge based.
Yeah.
People will trust you when you know what you're talking about.
Exactly. Well, it's funny how when you've seen a million photographs and seen the property after it over and over, you can look at photographs and tell what it is the way other people just can't. And when you know a market, I think it's market based. When you're in a market, you know what the market is, and it's easier to read the photographs because of that. Totally. So, in your business now that you've been in for 19 years, there's probably still the marketing concept, the showing, you're marketing yourself, you're still winning business, you're still delivering business, and you're still somewhat growing or continuing your business. What is your do you have a current formula? Like, do you have systems and have you streamlined your marketing and how you deliver it? Or does it really just come to you, and how do you handle it if you do it that way?
True to my contrarian nature, my entire process, almost everything I do in my life is very organic, and I just do whatever I think is right at the time. So I don't believe in systems because it just doesn't suit my personality. Most people, it's the exact right thing to do. I don't do it. I don't have specific systems. I just do whatever I think is right at the time.
Now, how do you keep up with all of your clients?
It just happens. I mean, because I know my clients or I know people that know my clients, it's really not that hard. New York is a little big town. Everybody's, it's a vertical city. So you see people a lot, I reach out to clients, not for business. I've never once said, and if you know anybody who's looking to buy or sell, I've never said that. I've always been definitely afraid of sounding like a used car salesman. So I don't do any of that stuff. I just, if I want to talk to you, I'll talk to you. And if not, I won't. It's just the way I am.
I love hearing you say that, because I'm a big believer in that. When you go around, that's the reason why a lot of people, unfortunately, our business has a bad rap with people, because there's this consistent paradigm of you've got to go out and push people to do business with you. And what is that? Right? So people do business with you because they trust you, because you have the knowledge that they need. And in your case, you have marketing that nobody else can do to give them more of what they need.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's funny, the bad reputation thing. I was having beers with two clients years ago, and they were saying, Brad, real estate brokers, what a bunch of scumbags. I said, well, you're a lawyer and you're a hedge fund guy. And those are probably the only two worst professions.
Like, what's he talking about? Right.
Yeah. He's like, what the hell are you guys talking about? And they got real quiet.
Oh, I love it. That's great. That's great. In our business, the good ones are great. And like you said, there's the 20% that know what they're doing, that are great at what they're doing. And I think a big part of this podcast, frankly, is just getting that out there and making sure that those agents that are coming in the business learn it, and those of us that are in it stick to it and make ourselves better and better. I always do my final three. So we're going to do the final three questions. Number one, what have you found is your greatest tool in being successful? And that could be anything. That's a broad question. Is there something you do to keep connected to people consistently? Is it your marketing, being outside the box consistently? We haven't talked about your staging yet. I know you're really good at staging and working with people to tell them cost to renovate and what to do, and great success at that. Maybe we want to dip into that a little bit.
What is my greatest tool? I'd say just trusting yourself. as mentioned, I do things, I've always just done things differently. And when I was young, I've always had big ideas, and I've always executed on my ideas. And when I was younger, a lot of my ideas ended up not being so good. But I just have big ideas. I've always been that way. And as I've gotten older, I think I've honed in on which ones are good ideas and which ones are bad ideas. Sometimes I still do the bad ones, but I think trusting myself is definitely my strongest tool.
Trust yourself, execute on your ideas, and don't be afraid of making mistakes.
No, God, no. Mistakes are, you learn from your mistakes, and sometimes mistakes work out really well.
Yeah, exactly. So before I ask the second question, should you tell us a little bit about the staging and the renovating that you do and how that works with clients and how you implement that?
Sure. I'm sort of known for, well, I've done a lot of renovations. Let me start there. And I've consulted with countless clients on it. So that's one thing that people come to me for. They hear that that's sort of one of my strong suits. That's a product of not only doing renovations, but I meet with architects and contractors anytime my clients do. And half the time the architects, within an hour meeting, I will have changed their mind on what they're going to do, because I've just seen so many apartments. I've done so many renovations, consulted so many clients, that I've got, as a real estate broker, you either have the eye or you don't. I've definitely got the eye. I can walk into a room and see what it can be as opposed to what it is. So that's definitely one of the things I'm known for. I'm also, because I sit in with all these meetings, I know exactly what things cost. So I can go in with a client without an architect or a contractor and give them a realistic estimate of, okay, if you buy this place, it's going to, the renovation is going to cost X amount of dollars, which is huge, because if you're only going in an apartment twice for 10 minutes a pop and you're dropping a ton of money, you should have a very good idea of what you're going to have to spend to get it the way you want.
Yeah.
Regarding staging, I definitely, that's another thing that people come to me for. I don't necessarily use staging companies. I like to use what people have and make it better. So thinning out, rearranging furniture. I had many years ago, I had a listing on 7th Avenue, and this woman had this bookshelf to create an entry hall. And I said, we got to get rid of this bookshelf and a bunch of other stuff. She did the bunch of other stuff, but she would not move the bookshelf. Wouldn't sell. 3 months in, I was like, you got to move the bookshelf. We got to move the bookshelf. We got to move the bookshelf. Finally, she broke down and we did it. And 2 days later, we had an offer. So I'm definitely good at walking into a room and figuring out how to best stage it to sell. My number one rule is everyone in Manhattan, I don't know about you guys in the ATL, but everybody walks in the door, they walk right by me, and they go to the window. Everybody. So I never let clients have a chair that's going to obstruct their access to that window. A coffee table, if there's a coffee table, get rid of the coffee table. Well, that's weird. My lifestyle, I need a coffee table. I said, well, getting rid of that coffee table is going to make you about $150,000. How much do you like your coffee table? I'll get rid of the coffee table. So it's all about getting to the window is step one. And then two, it's about distracting the eye. So I believe that real estate, this is perfect for renovations too. I'm going to decide where your eye is going to go. If you spend $100,000 on a kitchen renovation, you can save a lot of money in certain areas, because I can make your eye go to the backsplash, or I can make your eye go to the counter. You can save money on the cabinets. It's all about, staging is all about me deciding where your eye is going to go. If you're only in this apartment twice for 10 minutes, I can make you not really focus on the negatives with staging. I can make you, I can make your eye go where I want it to.
Well, we only have capacity for so much. So make sure you stage in a way, you're staging in a way that draws them into the positives, 100%. Because we're not, like, it's scientifically proven. We only have capacity for so much. So drawing their attention into the positives and into things that they'll remember. A lot of what you said just keeps making me think of memory prints from the marketing to the staging to the way that you're handling people is memory prints. Like, it's all about making the right experiences and imprinting the right memories with people to make the right decisions.
Yeah, you got it.
So next question.
Oh,
what is a book that you would recommend that's most impacted you in your career or your life?
you know, I don't read books.
How did I know you were going to say that?
Well, I didn't finish.
Maybe you listen.
I don't really read books about real estate. I'm engulfed in real estate. So I would say read a book that has nothing to do with real estate, because you got to get out of your head.
Yeah.
My favorite book of all time is Confederacy of Dunces. So that's a book I'd read. I'm not going to tell you to read a self-help book or a real estate book.
And why is that your favorite book?
It's totally out of left field, bizarre, awesome, hilarious, crazy. It's about New Orleans. I went to school in New Orleans. So it's brilliantly written. I was an English major, and I used to read the first 80 pages of every book and throw them out. So it has to be captivating and really well written for me to get through a book. That book I've read so many times. It's the only book I'll read over and over and over. It's just well done.
Confederacy of Dunces. I've heard about it, but I have not read it.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you Google people's favorite books, it's a lot of people say it's their favorite book. It's really good.
Oh my gosh. Well, I've got to read it. Okay. Everybody knows my favorite book is Never Split the Difference, Chris Voss. I only mention it because I mention it all the time, but when you said every book I'd read the first 80 pages and throw it out. And this book, same thing for me. Chris Voss's book, it's on negotiating, especially negotiating books. I would read not even the first chapter and throw it out. And that book I've lost count. It's been 6 or 7 times.
What's his
If you do read a business book, read that one. What's that?
What's his philosophy? What's the gist?
The gist is negotiating it just depends how you think about it and how you handle people, and diffusing emotions. It's great at that. It's great at asking questions because, you got to take yourself out of it, and it gives you a way to frame things and ask people questions to get yourself out of it and get them to answer in a way and kind of apply empathy, collaborate, get them to say no first. Yep. Always get a no first, not a yes.
It's very Donald Trumpian.
Is it? I don't watch TV. I don't watch the news.
Yeah, that's good. It's kind of like my negotiation tactic is, I've been called the velvet hammer. You treat people with respect, but when it's time to put your foot down, you put your foot down. And usually, if you do treat people with respect, you'll end up getting what you want. I let people scream at me all the time. Just sit there calmly.
Yeah.
I'm from a long line of lawyers, and definitely the greatest negotiation tactic I've ever learned is just from observing lawyers. Lawyers are awesome at this, and it used to piss me off so much when I dealt with attorneys. And now I understand what it is and I use it. They just are quiet.
Yeah.
And when it gets quiet, the other person starts feeling the need to talk. And when they talk, they usually just tell you too much. So it's perfect for negotiation. I just sit there and I'm totally quiet. Ask you a question. I'll sit there for 45 seconds and just stare at you with a smile on my face, and you'll feel uncomfortable and you'll start telling me what I want to hear.
So true. That's in the book too. And when you mirroring, we could go on. A lot of people know about it, but it applies all of that. But it's the only book that's ever brought clarity to it, and it spins a few things. It gives a few things I've never heard before also. But back to you now, Brad.
Oh God. Oh, man. Hello, man.
But that's great. I love that advice about being quiet. It's so true. Last question. If there's one thing that we're going to take away from this interview conversation and forget everything else, what would you say we need to make sure that is?
I'll go back to trust yourself. Just, be yourself unless you stink, and then be somebody else. Just trust yourself. There's a lot of people, if you know what you're doing, your add value is you. Knowledge, yes, anybody can learn every market. You can learn every property. You can learn true value. You can learn square footage. So anybody can do that. Now you got to bring yourself, because that's really what's going to make you successful or not successful. You know, if you're true to yourself, that's what's going to make you stand out. Unless you're super boring, then drink a bunch of coffee.
Even when you're super boring, there's something underneath it all. It's usually numbers and data or something.
Yeah,
surely there's something.
I for a while I worked with a very successful broker who will remain nameless, who's nuts. And years ago, my manager put us together because he is a walking encyclopedia of real estate. He knows everything, and he has a total photographic memory.
Wow.
And my manager's like, Brad, this guy has just incredible recall. I went on a pitch, and we were in Harlem, and the seller, we're talking about her place. This broker said, well, where do you want to move to? And she said, I'm thinking about Murray Hill. He goes, oh, you should check out listing 473217. It's blank, blank, blank. And literally, he knew the listing number, but then recited everything about the apartment. It was incredible. But I'm getting off the topic. My manager said, this guy knows everything about real estate, but he has zero social grace. So I want you to work with him. So I worked with him. You know, to your point, whatever you do, work it. If you're super boring people, some people want super boring people to work with. This guy was borderline nuts, but he knew his shit. So that was his shtick. And you know, maybe
own it.
Yeah, maybe if you're lacking in a certain, you know, area, own it. For several years I had a business partner, Matt Amico, who's an amazing person. He was a really good broker. And I used to have the most fun walking into a pitch with him because Matt is very unique, and I never knew what he was going to do. So he'd go in and he would hone in on one thing, and he would sound like a financial specialist. So then I used to love it. I'd sort of loop around and I'd fill in all the gaps. I would be the guy who talks about the decorating and the staging. Another pitch, we would go in together and he would talk about like the staging. So then I would plug in the financial hole. Like real estate, you can, as long as you have all this knowledge, you can apply it however you see fit. So if you do have deficiencies, maybe you work with somebody who, you know, if you're not good at numbers, have a partner that works with numbers or join a team. Somebody who's good at numbers, just you know, plug in your holes.
Well, I love plug in your holes. I think I know a lot of people who become very successful quickly. Neil Bassi is one of them in San Francisco. I think he did 280 million this past year. He's always in like the top 3, but he started in business by bringing brokers on every single listing. I find as I get more experienced, I know what I'm not good at. And there aren't many deals I don't bring another broker in on because I know who's good at what.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to make sure my client's getting the best. So I bring them the best of what I've got and what I'm missing. I know who to pick and bring in to fill in those, like you said, fill in those gaps.
Yeah. And, you know, you can even, another way to fill in the gaps is just listen. When I started off, as mentioned, Holly Parker got me in the business. Holly's not only one of my best friends, she's just great. She's a great person. She's a great broker. And listening to how she dealt with people in my early days taught me so much. And then on the other side, Leonard Steinberg we shared an office with Leonard, and I would listen to Leonard's a real estate genius and, you know, an awesome guy. And I would listen to him, and just listening to people around you that are better than you will make you better.
It will. Go ahead.
One time I had a huge beef with as mentioned, my marketing was super unique, and a big broker in our office completely ripped off my postcard. And I walked in the manager, and I hated this guy to begin with because he was the used car salesman type guy. Did a ton of business, but sometimes doing a ton of business has a very hefty price, which is your integrity. So I went in my office. I'm like, Chris, this, you know, fill in the blank is a jackass and stole my postcard. Look at this. And I held them together. He goes, yeah, God, he totally plagiarized that. He goes, but there's nothing I can do. He makes too much money. And I was like, fuming. Yeah. And I walked back, and I'm like, I was so pissed off. And I turned to Leonard and Holly, who were sitting there. I'm like, what can I do? I got to get this guy back. And Leonard goes, kill him with kindness. I'm like, what? No, I want to like beat him up. I don't know what I want to do. He goes, no, don't say a word. Just smile at him. It'll come back. It'll bite him in the ass.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, listening to people around you is invaluable. So if you're a younger agent, you should be in the office as much as possible and just eavesdrop.
That's great advice. I'll say about Leonard. I always tell Leonard, as you know, he was the 100th episode on the show. I don't know if you know that, but he's been on the show. And it's like every other sentence that comes out of that guy's mouth is like a quote. I'm like, I could just like take the show and just like take one-liners and have like a year of social media.
Well, that's Leonard all the time. He's not like, there's nothing canned. He's just that way.
Yeah. So that is incredible advice. You said the one last piece of advice, because we're going to close it out with this, but I want to bring it back to that so everybody remembers and hears it as you are the best, or what did you say? You are your best value add. Was that how you said it?
I don't even know what I said. I don't even listen to myself.
You said trust yourself and you are your best value add. So you've got to just own it. Who you are, what you're best at, own it, know it. And that's what you've done incredibly well. And it doesn't mean I'll say this and we'll finally close out, but I can remember doing a workshop with my office, but it's been 3 or 4 years, and everybody came back at the end of it. And the biggest thing they learned, they would say is, I used to always think that I had to look at successful people and just try to emulate them. Oh, no. And I learned that that's the best way to not being successful. You've got to learn what your strengths are and captivate those. And that's going to make you the most successful broker. At that point, it's just how successful do you choose to be?
Yeah. Well, I think that you don't want to emulate anybody for sure, but you do want to plagiarize. Like Holly has a line that I learned in my career. Somebody's, wants the sofa thrown in the deal, and the seller says, I'm not, they want, the sofa. What, they only want to pay me $1,000 for a sofa. She said, the same applies to commission when people argue over commission. Say, don't jump over the dollars to get to the pennies. Like, why are you focusing on $1,000 sofa when you're selling a $4 million apartment? Why are you focusing on 1% of commission, cutting me 1%? You should be focusing on the other 99% of what you're going to make on this deal. You want to de-incentivize me or other brokers to sell your property. You're jumping over the dollars to get to the pennies. It's just foolish. So
that's a great line. I'm using that one. Don't jump over the dollars to get to the pennies.
Yes, it applies to a lot of things in life, but don't focus on the little minutia. You got to focus on the big goal and get it.
Yeah.
So
great.
It's not emulating, but you can pick and choose bits of wisdom from different brokers that apply to you. So you don't need to emulate people, but you should plagiarize a little bit.
Definitely take their advice. Definitely take what's good. Awesome. Absolutely. Awesome interview, Brad. Thank you.
That was fun.
Show. You were great.
Thank you.